Good morning, everybody. I'm coming on to share with you some facts about myself. I was tagged by Jean Jones, and the questionnaire is 15 random facts about me. So they are very random, and they're not really anything to do with crafting. So the first question is, when did I last cry? And well, I think I have to say that was when I had my external fixation taken off my leg, and that's a kind of a frame. For those of you who don't know, I broke my ankle very badly back in November, and I had to have this external fixation on for quite a long time, which is sort of a series. It looked like a bit of a pylon on my leg, with a rod through my heel and two into one of my bones in my shin, two rods there, and then that was all held together in a triangle just to keep everything in place. And it was quite a little bit like scaffolding on my leg. And anyway, the doctor consultant, when he decided it was time that it could come off, did it in the outpatient clinic, and it was quite painful. He didn't offer me any local anaesthetic, and I have to say I did shed one or two tears then, because it was a bit cruel, really. And then the next question is the first thing I notice about people, and I would say kind of like the overall appearance, the overall the overall gesture. I mean, I don't just look at the face or whatever, but just look at the person, really, and kind of notice what they're feeling like, or what they're, whether they're happy or whether they're sad or a bit worried or whatever. So I suppose really the first thing I notice is their face, because that's where all these emotions are portrayed. Mm-hmm. The next question is the furthest away from home that I have ever been. Well, I have to admit I'm a bit of a home bird. I don't really like travelling, but I have been abroad 3 times in my life, only 3 times. And the furthest away from home was Rome in Italy, where I went for a week over Easter one year, which was very, very special. The fourth question is, what did I want to be growing up? Well, I don't know why this happened, but I always wanted to be a pharmacist. There is a history of pharmacy in my family, in that my grandfather on my mother's side and my uncle, her brother, were both pharmacists. I didn't really know what that meant, but just I suppose it's in my blood, and so I had that in my mind, that I was also going to be a pharmacist when I grew up. And it's not that I had a lot of contact with my uncle or his shop or anything, because they lived in Suffolk and we lived in Somerset, which is totally, the opposite sides of the country. And we very rarely could manage to go and visit them, or they visit us. So it's not that I had a lot of encouragement from him or anything like that. And then when I was choosing my A levels, I'd chosen my A levels, but then when I was thinking about what degree I wanted to do and everything, my thoughts did go, well, maybe I wanted to do a pure science or something like that. But as it turned out, the A levels that I was doing were not suitable at that time. I had one of the A levels that was needed, but not all of them, or I didn't have enough grades. So the only option that kept coming up for me was pharmacy, and so I saw that as a bit of an omen, to say, well, just follow that path. That's what you wanted to do, and that's what I did. And I enjoyed myself as a pharmacist for many years. Says, what was your favourite and worst subject at school? Well, my favourite subject was maths, and my worst subject Well, I had quite a few, really. Art, PE, and French. I just could not get my head around French at all. I have really not got a head for languages, and it wasn't made any easier by the fact that there was one native French speaker in my class, and there was somebody else who must have had French relatives or something like that. Anyway, she was fluent in French when she already started in school when she was 11. And so the teacher kind of worked to their level rather than to the level of the rest of us. And I found that very difficult. I just didn't get on with it. And I was very shy at the time, so also I found it very difficult to speak out loud in the classroom, especially in a language which wasn't mine. Then the next question was the name choice for kids, for my children. Well, I'm not married, I don't have any children, so I'm afraid I can't answer that. The next question is, what bad habits do I have? Well, when I read this, I thought, I can't really think of anything, but perhaps one of my habit that I've got, which doesn't really help, is that I don't put things away quickly enough. And so, especially papers, when things come in from the post that need answering or need dealing with or just need filing away, they can sit on my desk forever and a day, and they just pile up. And then every so many weeks, I think, I must clear this pile, and so I guess that's a bad habit, not to do things promptly and in the moment. I have heard this saying, that we should only handle a piece of paper once, which is look at it, look at it and deal with it. But I'm afraid life has too many things going on that I can't always achieve that. The next question was if I had any tattoos, and the answer to that is no. And what is my middle name? So my middle name is Mary. Has to say about that. And what is my favorite perfume? Well, I'm not really a perfume person, so I have to say here I don't have a favorite perfume. But if we could go to colognes and that sort of thing, then the eau de cologne, is it 4711, is my ultimate favorite. I love that one. My favorite film, and again, I'm not really someone who I'm not a film addict, and I don't particularly like watching films, because I can't sit and watch them for such a long length of time. It's too uncomfortable for me. But if I was to say which film would I like to see time and time again, the answer has to be Casablanca. The next question is, how tall am I? Well, I'm 5 foot. I might even be 4'11", but no more than 5 foot. So quite small, and sometimes I wish I was a bit taller, especially when trying to reach in tall cupboards or, on top of things, because I have to get the steps out. And we all know what happened to me when I got steps out in November. I fell off the step ladder and broke my ankle. So having a bit of a hard time at the moment reaching up into the higher regions of cupboards and things, because I am not going up steps at the moment. I don't think it's safe yet. The next question is, what was my worst downfall? And again, I can't think of anything. Just can't think. Because what I think is if we make mistakes, we learn from them, and we just move on. So I haven't really dwelt on the negativity side of life. Just try to carry on, and so I can't think of anything. It makes me sound rather goody or whatever. Well, that's not the truth, but I just can't. There's nothing that sort of stands out. The next question is, what is the worst pain I've ever had? Well, I have to say that it is to do with my broken ankle. Up until then, really, I hadn't had much pain in my life. I didn't have much pain with it being held together with the frame. I didn't have any problem with it when it was in plaster. I had a bit of pain after the operation when they put the screws and the plate in and that, but not a lot of pain. But the pain came when that consultant took the frame off my leg, because the rods that were through my ankle and into my shin bones were screwed in, and they had been in there probably about 8 weeks. They'd been there altogether before the operation and then for 6 weeks after the operation. So so he proceeded. He said, "Are you brave?" And I said, "Oh yes, I'm brave." He said, "Because we can take it out." I thought he was going to give me a local anaesthetic or something. Oh no. So he took off all the extraneous bits which were holding it all together, and then he started literally unscrewing it, like with a drill bit, which sort of unscrewed the thing, and it was excruciating because, of course, it was in the bone, and it was hitting nerves as they were coming out. He said, "Oh, you'll notice a bit of stiffness at the beginning, or because the skin will have grown around it." Well, that was the least of my problems. And when he took the two out on my leg, and then he proceeded to do the one in my ankle, and that was, well, terrible. And then, because they've done a lot of sort of fiddling around with it, then my foot had to be put in plaster up to my knee, and it had to be put in a certain position. And no matter how hard they tried, I couldn't put it in that position because I was in such pain. So I'd say that was my most painful experience. And then my most embarrassing situation. Well, again, I had to think hard about this one. And I recalled one situation which I found embarrassing at the time. As a young pharmacist, I was working in London in a hospital that doesn't exist anymore. It was at Hyde Park Corner, St George's Hospital, since moved to Tooting. And it was an old department. It was a very old building, and we were in the basement, as most pharmacy departments seem to be in London. And we had a series of big drums with taps on them, a bit like, I suppose you could say, like beer barrels with taps, or anyway, big drums with various liquids in them. And part of our work was to fill up, to decant from these things into bottles to send to the wards. And there was one of these which was, and I don't know why the pharmacy department was giving this out, but it was something that looked like washing up liquid. It was probably a bit stronger. It was called T-Pol. And on one occasion, I can't remember whether the drum was empty and I changed over the tap or what, but anyway, whatever happened, the tap, the thing that we put into the hole to dispense the liquid, went into the drum. The drum was lying on its side, and so all the T-Pol came out onto the floor. And I quickly put it upright so it couldn't leak. But then I had to mop it up. And I don't know whether you've ever tried mopping up a pool, a lake really, of washing up liquid, strong washing up liquid. I don't mean, And anyway, I got a bucket and mop. There was a runnel there, because this was wet work where we were, and it was so, if there were any spillages, it could just go into this runnel and down the drain. Anyway, I got my bucket and mop, and I started mopping it up. And sitting close by, having her coffee break, was one of the cleaners. anyway, she didn't offer any advice. She didn't say anything. And I think she was quite happy to see that I was clearing up my mess. But of course, it was getting frothier and frothier and frothier, and more and more water. And when I had finished, it took me quite a while. She just said, "Would have been better if you should have used cold water for that." I don't know whether it would have made any difference or not, but perhaps it would have. And so there we are. So that's the story of my life. Thank you for staying with me. I'd just like to tag another person to take part in this getting to know us random facts. And I would like to tag Kate Fletcher of Cards by Kate Fletcher, because she's somebody I don't know very well, and I've just joined her channel a few weeks ago, and I like her very much, and I think she's very inspiring, and so I'd like to know how to get a bit more. No, I'd like to know a bit more about her. So thank you everybody for watching, and I'll be back shortly. Bye for now.